Chemicals are everywhere. Everything you hear, see, smell, taste, and touch involves chemicals and chemistry. But today, we're specifically exploring only those chemicals or molecules that were discovered in the land of the rising sun, Japan. And indeed, with so many discoveries, the Japanese have good reason to be proud. So without further ado, let's get started. The first element that was discovered in Japan, the element 113, was discovered by Professor Kosuke Morita at Kyushu University. It is a super heavy synthetic element on the periodic table. After its discovery, it was named nihonium by Japanese scientists, which made it the first element named by an Asian.
Tally-ho.
The next Japanese chemical invented looks like a pretty delicious jelly-like substance. Agar is a very important ingredient in desserts in Asian countries. It also nourishes bacterial culture in microbiology. It can be used as a laxative, an appetite suppressant, a vegetarian replacement for gelatin, a thickener for soups, and in ice cream and fruit preserves. Agar was discovered in Japan around 1658 by the ancient Japanese scientist Minotauro Zeman. The next molecule is known as Crispr. It is very important for modifying the genetic materials of living beings. The molecule Crispr with enzyme Cas9 gives scientists the superpower to modify living creatures. It's like playing God in laboratory. That's crazy. This amazing godlike molecule was discovered by Yoshizumi Ishino in 1987. The next molecule increases blood pressure.
You know what I did? The fucking distract you!
And acts as bronchodilators in lungs. Oh yes, we're talking about ephedrine. Nagai Nagayoshi, a brilliant organic chemist, taught the world to synthesize this molecule at industrial levels in 1885. This amazing molecule can even decrease motion sickness. In many cases, ephedrine promotes modest short-term weight loss, and in mice, ephedrine has even been found to burn the majority of brown fat cells. However, it can also be a very dangerous compound. In 2004 alone, over 18,000 Americans suffered from adverse side effects from ephedrine.
Christ, you know what I can do with these fucking ass, Christ!
When you're expected to perform at your best, you're always full of adrenaline, right? Well, the next molecule is epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, and its concentration increases in the body during flight or fight responses. A Japanese chemist, Jokishi Takamine, and his assistant, Kaizo Unaka, discovered it in 1900. But the story doesn't end there. In 1901, Takamine also isolated and purified adrenaline from adrenal glands taken from sheep and oxen. As a result, the molecule today can be used to treat a number of conditions including anaphylaxis, cardiac arrest, asthma, and superficial bleeding. Everyone knows anesthesia is pretty important before performing a surgery. The next chemical solution we're talking about is known as susensin hot drink, which was developed in 1804 by a Japanese doctor named Hanaoka Seishu. He became the first surgeon in the world to use general anesthesia in surgery.
This reminds me of my childhood.
His work was particularly notable because he removed a cancerous tumor from a 60-year-old woman. And after that, he performed a total of 156 similar operations for breast cancer patients. If you know about CPH4 molecules, which were shown in the movie Lucy and described as being able to enhance brain activity in the most supernatural way,
Don't move.
I need to talk to you alone.
And I need you to put your hands up, please.
then you're probably wondering if something like that can really exist. Well, the answer is a big yes. We are talking about methamphetamines, which were first synthesized from ephedrine in 1894 by chemist Nagiyoshi Nagai. However, it was only 25 years later, in 1919, that a medically usable formulation of methamphetamine hydrochloride was successfully synthesized by pharmacologist Akira Ogata. This medication is used to treat attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, also known as ADHD. It can help increase your ability to pay attention, stay focused on an activity, and control your behavioral problems too. If you're suffering from obesity, diabetes, high cholesterol, and extra fats, then you might have interacted with molecules from statin class, even if you didn't realize it. The statin class of molecules, also known as HMG-CoA reductase inhibitors, are classified as lipid-lowering chemical agents. These compounds significantly reduce the number of deaths in cardiovascular-related conditions, and we have Japanese biochemist Akira Endo to thank for their discovery. At that time, mevestatin was the first discovered member of the statin class.
Come on now, lift up. Where's Victor?
The story of the discovery of the first water-soluble B vitamin, thiamine, is pretty interesting. The story took place in Imperial Japan before 1884. Many Japanese Navy personnel suffered from beriberi disease. In wet beriberi cases, it caused cardiovascular failures. However, dry beriberi was scarier because it damaged the nerves and caused paralysis. Fortunately, in 1884, Takaki Kanehiro, a surgeon general in the Japanese Navy, rejected the old germ theory for that particular disease and hypothesized that beriberi occurs due to insufficiencies in the diet. Instead, Takaki replaced the old Navy diet with white rice, meat, milk, barley, bread, and vegetables, which nearly eliminated beriberi on a 9-month sea voyage. 26 years later, in 1910, Umetaro Suzuki successfully separated the water-soluble B-complex compounds. People love tasty food. For many, some of the tastiest food has a meaty, savory taste. This meaty taste was first discovered in Japan and is known as umami. Sodium glutamate or monosodium glutamate is responsible for the meaty umami taste. In 1908, a Japanese chemist called Akita isolated monosodium glutamate, or MSG, at Tokyo Imperial University. It is also known as Ajinomoto and is recognized as an essence of meaty flavor. You're likely watching this video on a smartphone that is powered by a lithium-ion battery. If you are, you have Dr. Akira Yoshino to thank, in part. In 1970s, at Asahi Kasei Corporation, he studied polyacetylene, a fascinating electroconductive polymer. By 1983, Akira Yoshino made a battery by combining polyacetylene as an anode and lithium cobalt oxide as a cathode. At that time, the new lithium-ion battery was 1/3 lighter than a standard nickel-cadmium battery. Their size and effectiveness mean that these lithium-ion batteries will remain in the near future for humanity. Today, they are used in electric cars, like Teslas. In the future, we will see more electric trucks, trains, robots, and perhaps even electric planes. You better believe lithium-ion batteries will be a part of all of it. If you think mice that glow in the dark with green fluorescent light are fascinating, then you would probably also be interested to find out more about GFP, or green fluorescent protein. GFP is one of the most important molecules for fluorescent microscopy. This glowing compound was found in the Aquaria victoria jellyfish by Osamu Shimomura in the 1960s. The jellyfish looks like it has glowing crystals all over its body. The GFPs absorb the ultraviolet waves of the blue spectrum and emit it in the darkness. In recent years, GFPs have also been used to mark protein, cells, and organisms. Personally, I want this glowing superpower for myself, too.
I'm gonna work you, and I'm gonna hit you until your will is strong enough to be worthy of the code.
This molecule was developed in mammals through evolution to provide a last line of defense against parasites, animal venom, and noxious toxins. It is known as immunoglobulin E, or IgE. It is a macromolecule and monoclonal antibody that plays an essential role in resisting the venom of honeybees and Russell's vipers. Not just that, these complex IgE molecules fight against malignant tumors in cancerous individuals too, and the ideal choice as an immunotherapeutic agent in future. In 1966, a Japanese immunologist, Kimishige Ishizaka, discovered the last Ig-class antibody named E, or IgE. We all know how dangerous parasites can be. A lot of life-threatening infectious diseases are caused by parasites or spread by insects. River blindness disease, which is blindness affecting the cornea, is caused by a small worm called the Onchocerca volvulus. It is the second most common cause of blindness due to infection. Similarly, lymphatic filariasis, or elephantitis, is also caused by a small parasitic worm called nematodes and produces chronic swelling. During a visit to the African continent, Satoshi Umada saw people in Africa were disproportionately suffering from parasitic infections. Because of his cultural value that societies come first before the interest of the individual, he was concerned about the impact of parasites on African society. Satoshi, the son of a farmer, isolated ivermectin from a bacteria known as Streptomyces ivermectineus. Ivermectin killed a range of different parasites inside as well as outside the body, making it an important contribution in the fight against parasitic diseases.
Yours.
Whatever game you're playing, it won't work. You can't defeat me.
No, I know. But he got it.
No!
There are so many other discoveries made by Japanese scientists. In case of antibiotic discoveries, Japan ranked third after the US and UK. Japan has discovered so many important antibiotics that we use today. For example, in 1949, colistin was discovered by the Japanese scientist Koyama. In 1955, mitomycin C was isolated by Dr. Toju Hata and Dr. Shigetoshi Wakagi. In 1957, kanamycin was discovered, and in 1965, bleomycin was isolated by Hamao Umezawa. In 1969, cefazolin was produced by Fujisawa. In 1972, amikacin was a modification of kanamycin. In 1976, hypericillin was discovered by Toyoma.
In 1979,
Norfloxacin was patented by Kyorin Pharmaceuticals Company Limited. In the 1980s, ofloxacin was developed by scientists at Daiichi Sankyo. In 1984, clarithromycin was developed by researchers at Toshiba Pharmaceuticals. In 1987, meropenem was discovered by Sumitomo Dai-Nippon Pharma. And the list goes on. Cefoperazone, levofloxacin, tazobactam, and so many more.
Guys, check out my new favorite channel. It is so good. Oh my god. Look at it.